it was about, my parents were making wine and cereals. And so, yeah, as I said, like, it was all about, it was a very kind of physical kind of environment. We were like picking up the grapes. We were like part of it. Like, it was quite nice because, I mean, having our parents working on the farm was, having the parents working at home, it means that you're really involved in the work, and it was all quite cool. So, but that was like, so I grew up between this farming side, and my mom's side was really like manufacturing, super high-tech hinges, so these kind of hinges. So I really grew up between these two kind of they were like kind of quite different landscapes, very farming, very real, very like the mud, and this other side that was very like industrial, very clean, robots and so on. But what was interesting in both cases is like, in both cases, it was about taking a material, transforming it into a product, which is somehow what I still do today. So I guess it has been quite marking as a childhood thing. And so quite early on, I think I felt like I wanted to do things. I don't really know what it was yet very clearly, but at 15 years old, I applied for like an applied art school, which is quite young. It's like before you do the baccalaureate in France and so on. And I left home to be in a boarding school to go and do this school. I felt quite strongly about it. So, and I was like sharing this bedroom with four girls, and we were like doing like, and we were going to school, and we were having like almost half the week that was devoted to applied art. What was quite nice is like we had really good teachers, I think, and they were really showing us really good reference or interesting people. So at the time, like, I'm just kind of putting you back, I'm from 87, so it would have been like early 2000s or something like this. And the big people were like the Bourlecs, they still are, but like, it was all about space dividers and things like this. And there was also the interesting things in fashion where Issey Miyake, Epoch, and all of that. But mostly what was cool, the younger kind of strands were like drug design, that were doing all these like kind of, they were much more alternative and kind of showing some kind of a new kind of style of what product design could be. So it was less clean, and there was Bless. I don't know if you're familiar with this fashion label, that clearly come from the Margiela side of things, that were like really like repurposing like other piece of they were like a real melange between fashion, product, and art, and they were really quite an important reference, I think, in my early life. And what's really interesting about Bless, they really were taking things, and they were like reappropriating them and reselling them to like a lot of Japanese and Chinese market. But it was quite funny because they were really like doing something completely new, I think, at the time. They were like doing furniture that were hanging, and like and the person that was working with them a lot, which was quite important, I think, was Bless, was Manuel Rader, which you'll probably be familiar with, a graphic designer, German graphic designer. And it was also really cool what he was doing, because he was really, so for example, he was responsible for all the Bless communication side of things. And he was really colonizing other like magazines to show the collection of Bless, or he was taking quite a physical approach to graphic design, where he was like making these handles like you can see on the stone here, like and having a branding with a tape. all the manuals for the bless objects were all very, it was very tactile graphic design. He also did like, I don't remember, I don't think, yeah. He also had like, this was an invite. It was like a rug printed 1-to-1 scale, and at the back it was an invite. But I mean, I had that in my bedroom. It was paper, but I had that rug in my bedroom forever because I happened to own one of them. So what was really nice is like, and sorry, the last reference that was also quite a big one was Martí Gixe, so Spanish this time. But I mean, all these people are part of Droog group. Huh? But that was quite important because he was probably a little bit more, even more conceptual, and he would be really kind of rejecting a little bit product design as a standard thing. Like it wasn't really more about making share, it was about hacking them and writing on them, and the products were very two-dimensional. So like he did a lot of things with tapes and things like that. So all these people were really like, I think what they had all in common was about they were transforming existing things, recycling things, reusing them, hacking them. And in all of that, they were really making something like you could really see where they were taking things from, and they were like collaging them together and really offering an alternative. So, I mean, you have to think also one thing quite important, I think, is like this is before internet. So our internet was really fresh at the time. So we had very few references, I think. So, so this is really the things I remember. What I really looked at, it was Bless, it was Droog, it was Manuel Rader, and the way they really kind of offered like a completely new it was just new products. It was they were taking things that were existing and then they were just repurposing them in a certain way. It's just really important as an introduction to my work. So you'll see why after. So after that, that bit in the applied arts school, I went to ISAD, Strasbourg. So that was after the baccalaureate, so I would have been 18. So that's an art school in Strasbourg, which is one of the big French art schools, I guess. And I was when I arrived in that school, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was interested in graphic design, if I was interested in fashion, if I was interested in product. It was not very clear. Precisely because all of the reference we've been shown, the people were kind of doing, they were all kind of mixing it up, and themselves, they were not really like clearly a fashion designer or clearly a graphic designer. It was so mashed up that it was difficult to really know what I liked. But I was for sure very interested in all these ephemera things that were around the products. So I was doing some also myself very crappy graphic design. And I was asked sometimes to do like some flyers and things. So this is like a little flyer I did for a radio, which was called Radio Banana. And this was like a thing I did for like what was it, like a students cinema thing. And then I was doing like these like shoes and weird fashion things. That was kind of, I'm just showing you because I think it's quite funny to show you all the things you go through. So, and I was like doing all these things in an after school or in the school, depending, that were just like, I just had this urge to make things, and next to, unfortunately, I don't have this material anymore, but I was making the things, and then I was making a catalog for it, and I was like presenting it, but I was interested in the whole kind of aspect of the product. And then at ISA, the most important thing, it was really an art school. We had very few teachers to really guide us through anything. It was a bit messy. It was really an art school in that respect. But what was the best thing about it was really like all the materials and workshops and things, and I think I really got to experiment a lot of things there. And then one of the last projects I did there was this table that was a little bit more of a product. The table is not particularly interesting as per se now, but like what's interesting is that it was a table that was collapsible and that I could you could have different configuration. But what was interesting is it got selected to go to the Villanois. The Villanois is like a place in South France that they do like several fashion, they do a fashion kind of festival, and then they also do a product design festival. And so it got selected to that, and I got to meet the real kind of design scene there. And that then was a turning point where I was certain I wanted to work in that field. Because I think, as opposed to fashion, that I've done I've done an internship at Bless or whatever, as opposed to fashion or art, it was a place where I really felt comfortable with the people. I felt the people were nice, that was a good vibe. And I just liked that world. And this is what kind of really made me decide to go for product design then. So because I went to an art school and everything was a bit messy, I decided to go to ICAL and to get a little bit more straightness in the way. Like I felt like I needed a little bit more to become kind of cleaner in my work and more clear. And I was hoping that ICAL would bring that to me. So one of the first projects I did there was a project with on Migros. Migros is like the supermarket in Switzerland. But it was quite funny because it started off as a workshop, and I did some intervention in the supermarket itself. And then that's what really started with that project, is my understanding of collage. And I became really interested in combining several objects together to make something new. So you can see that on the right-hand side of the screen. I started to like put together several things to make something new. So for example, this pen, I called it in the end a fidelity pen. So the idea was like to take a pen and a keyring and to combine them into a new object. All that is interesting here is like that this idea really of taking two things together and making something new, and keeping the idea very clear. I continue to do this in a lot of my work. So this is like a bench I did for Hermes, it was like a Hermes competition thing, where I kind of took a wall and made it looks like a wall, but it's actually a heated bench. And I kept this very kind of clear, there are very clear elements. There was the wall, and then there is the chimney, and that's it. Like, and so I became more and more interested in this like real legibility in the work, so that you can really see elements, and that you can really clearly see the ideas. in the final product. So the process in the final product is quite important, I think, in my work. But also, obviously, Cal brought in like other things, like bringing in like more an industrial knowledge and materials that I probably didn't have before Cal so much. So I did like products like this torchlight that is still really quite good, I think. That was a foldable torchlight, so it would look like a stick, and it was a little bit of a curious product. You kind of didn't quite know what it was, and when you press the button, you open it, and there is a double flashlight in it. Yeah, but I think I started also finding like an interest in playfulness in the products as time went on. So, but also there is an important thing also that I have to say when I was at ICAR is that my dad comes from Switzerland and from Lausanne and from that region, and it was the first time I was coming. So, and there was the family farm there where my dad grew up, and they have cows and everything. And it it was the first time in my life that I started to appreciate that background. And I started to understand what it had brought to me as a person, and in terms of aesthetics as well. I mean, and I just like, for example, this is a good example. We've got these really like spontaneous thing that happen in a farm that are, so this is a curtain for heat or whatever, and it's done with bubble wrap. And it's nothing particularly aesthetic, but it works and functions, and it's the spontaneity of things that are made out of need, necessity, and I started to really appreciate this aesthetic whilst I was there in Switzerland. And I think it was just kind of starting to like understand my own just my own aesthetics and the things I like. And there's a few things like this quote I quite like. This is not from me, but the cheap chic concept, something genuine, uncomplicated, which communicates spontaneity, charm, without confusing austerity with boredom. So it's this thing of like products that are just uncomplicated and that are really just charming because their function is so clear and so obvious. And I just really like that idea. So I started to work on my thesis in the second year of ICAL. That was really about many things, but it was about all the ideas I had encountered over my studies, and some really important one was this aesthetic of collaging. So I'm coming back to this because it's super important in my work, how you can bring several things together and make something new with it. So, and I also was interested in this kind of ugliness, we call it ugliness, but like more like something that is not so maybe like curious. It's curious. It's like unusual shape, and it's the shape comes out purely out of function or necessity. So these things were like things I was really interested at ICAL, and I'm still interested today. And I started to, when I had to decide on what my diploma project would be, I decided to take an object. So it randomly was the bucket. There is no, I don't think there's a specific thing in that choice, apart that is a quite modest object. And I decided to explore that object, taking really the essence of it. So obviously a bucket is like a container with a handle. There is two parts to it, and then it's only defined by what it transports. But I did hundreds of buckets. It was really like almost like a crazy workshop of just making lots of different ones out of different materials. And it was really like I treated it like a pure research. And eventually a few came out to be sort of more finished products. But I think all of them have a certain like identity that you could almost associate every time with a place where it could be sold in a way. Or so there is the one that could be a little bit like an Alessi bucket, the other one that is maybe more like a paperweight that is like a more, you'll find it in a gift shop. There is the jewelry bucket, and there is the more standard bucket that had a function of, you can't see it on this picture, the green one, but the handle was locking in place in a certain way so that if you turn the handle, it would allow the bucket to dry. I mean, it was all pure exploration, but it was really trying to understand, like almost like looking at the whole spectrum of what product design, where it goes and where it sips in, and trying to be as broad in my outlook or in my capability as possible. After at my diploma, one of the jury was Nitzan Cohen, and he then invited me to come and work with him. So I went to Munich and worked on a lot of interior project, which is something I hadn't done much. So I worked for Mattiazzi. I did like these brand stands, the kind of thing, you know, if you go to a fair, you like have these like stands where you present the brand and the products. And I really enjoy doing these kind of spaces because they are so temporary. And it's quite fun. You can do different things. I was doing, sorry, my pictures are awful, but like lots of shop windows and concepts for that. More like hardcore industrial products. So these are just mock-ups, but I got to work with, like, what's interesting, I got to work with real Italian manufacturing and real really get into that more historical side of like I worked with Alessi, I worked with brands like this, so it was quite interesting to get into these like more historical brands and see how they work, and it's really nice. Like, so that just confirmed it for me. But after a while, I just had enough of cold Munich, and my boyfriend, that is still my life partner today, was in London, and so I decided to come here. And I needed a job desperately, and so I went to work for Tom Dixon, and it was I wasn't like particularly sure to work for him at first, but it was such a fun time for me. I stayed something like 4 years, and I had this really cool job. It was called special project designer, and basically my job was to just do lots of mock-ups and be really playful with the research. And my first job was Adidas. So my first job was to get the job with Adidas, which we got, and then I spent 2 years doing some speculative collections with them. We did a capsule collection that was presented in Milan, and then 2 more collections. But it was basically for me just being into this realm of like, Adidas has the biggest material collection in the world, or something like that, material library, I mean. So it was quite cool. I was just going there in this, it's really in the middle of Germany, not in a nice place, but there I had like this kind of, it was a bit like a playground. And so I was, the first collection was, I mean, it was probably Tom's idea to do like, it was like lots of reversible clothing things and stuff like that. But what was fun for me was to work on the details and how things were working. So I would literally come and find this piece of rubber in our material library, which would be like a flooring that is like shock absorbent, and say, oh, we're gonna take that and make a sole for the shoes. And or we would like say, oh, we're gonna make a jacket that is also like a sleeping bag, because the whole, sorry to give you a bit of background, the whole collection for Adidas was everything you can pack neatly in a bag for 1 week away. So, and was this idea of the traveler. So we had this, we made these like weird pieces, but what was quite fun for me, I was playing, like I was literally, this is like, I was making jackets out of plastic bags and collections of bags out that were like basically using sea salt crisps constructions. I mean, you know, like crisp bag collection constructions. And I was, or we made this collection that was basically based on like these like collapsible reflectors, you know, that have this spring thing in it, and the bags would pop up. Or we made like these extra soft boots that were made out like gloves. Like the idea was it was like covered in rubber and a 3D knitted sleeve. Anyway, it was a huge research. Some of it was presented in Milan, and some of it was presented in different ways in London. But so that was like 2 years of just playing around, and it was quite good, like quite fun for me. And then I did stay another 2 years where I did lots of random stuff. I was working on some random felted tracksuit for a Mongolian charity. I did like some scented bricks for London. It was, Tom Dixon was like a year in Paris. We did, I mean, I did some stuff for a gallery in New York. And then came the IKEA project that was all about hacking. So that was the second big project I did with Tom Dixon, which was IKEA. And we wanted to make a project that would then be sort of a little bit open source, at least that people could then hack, mostly because IKEA already has got this enormous or this massive hacking community, you know. So we kind of took that kind of aspect and just played with it, and we made like some platforms to which you could then from which you could make a lounge chair, a two-seater, a sofa, I mean, and so on, but then also tables. It was all one kind of extrusion that was doing everything, more or less. And then the hacks for it. So like he'd have a little hack with like electricity to like, I mean, a socket plug kind of thing, like or a table, a little swivel out table, another side out table, whatever. It's like, it was like lots of hacks, and there was many more then. It was then also, there was a whole thing around collaborating with other brands. We did like collaborate with other upholstery people to do kind of crazy things out of fur and stuff. But I mean, the projects are enormous. This is like, it's like the budgets are crazy for these things, and the amount of people involved. I'm just showing you a tiny portion of it. But all these projects were super formative for me because I was in charge of like this kind of super big project. I'm still fairly young, really, and it was super interesting for me to be involved in the project on all aspects, from obviously designing the product, but also really working on the concept and really going and work with the people that are in IKEA that do like the prototypes. And then, I don't know, it was super, super fun for me. But then one day I had enough, and I decided to try and start my own business. And so I really I think identified a bit better what I was doing, I think, or I can see it now anyway. And I was really continuing this like idea of the ready-made, borrowing materials and shapes from other industries and repurposing them. So I did that on quite a few products. So I think one of the first one was this project with MetaWell, which is, I found these really nice aluminium sheets that had a core that was a glued aluminium, bent aluminium sheet that was super lightweight, super strong, that you normally use in public transport flooring, so they can carry a lot of weight. And I decided to make a shelf out of it. I could have made something much bigger, but I mean, I had to start somewhere. And so this is the result. But I really envisaged it as almost cards, like something that you can, so if I go back here, like these sheets are so lightweight, it almost feels like it's like a piece of a card that you can then just assemble. So my line of conduct was to like try and make a product that was very easy to assemble, so without no screws, with nothing. So that's what led to just a slot in design. And it's a very basic product, but it works well. And then there was this other sample I found somewhere that was a piece of felt that was kind of industrially knitted, and I called up the manufacturer, and he said he could make these quite large, I mean extremely long felted. He can basically produce the felt in huge lengths. So I made a rug out of it. So hold on, I'm gonna try and get to it. So this was how I designed the pattern. I started by taping things together, like using this kind of tape, and then design the patterns in that way, then manually. And then I got to the result of these rugs that had this really nice quality of being able to be, they could be cut to any length. They still can be, but they can be cut to any length just using some plain scissors. So what was cool was that you could really just manufacture it to, I don't know, like 50-meter long rugs, and then put it in a shop and sell it and by the meter. So that's the idea of that rug. And then I had this whole crazy idea of like, maybe I needed an anti-slip kind of thing. So I was looking into making a graphic underneath with rubber and text and so on, which never happened. But I think it's fun to show that you try things and then it's not successful. Another one of these like already made product in a way was the boyfriend hook, which I produced in a very limited edition. That one was really like out of necessity, I guess. I just had a pair of jeans that was too big. I found a hook that was perfectly like holding it together, but then I just kept on losing the hook, so I had to improve the design a little bit by making it curl up one of the legs a little bit tighter so it couldn't come off when I was taking it down. So just like simple product that is kind of at the fringe between a hook, a piece of jewelry or whatever. But yeah, I like it still. Continuing with other jewelries, I was approached to do like some jewelries for some kind of diamond company. They were doing these like lab-grown diamonds. And it was quite a hard project for me because of the diamond aspect. I wasn't quite sure how to approach this. So I went down the kind of I looked for an interesting way of fastening the diamond, and I was going and look for these really industrial like clamps and clips and things, and I just ended up with these quite weird looking jewelries, but I think they're quite funny. And also like the processes were really like, how can you shape metal to hold something together? So this is like framed metal. I didn't put an example in the presentation here, but yeah, that was a quick way to approach jewelry, and another way to approach jewelry basically. So what I have to say is like, the funny thing in my practice, I'm doing a lot of different projects and I'm not specialized in nothing. So every time it's quite, how am I gonna look at this product? So it's always a little bit of a research first on how I'm gonna approach it. This is an important project here that I had this joint that I found again. I think it was during a visit in a factory for IKEA, and I found this really cool joint. It was like, you can see it on the left side here. It's like, it's for windows. So you have this kind of, it's called a thermal break, and it's like how to not have cold in the middle. It's kind of some plastic thing. And with that, I did a shelf. It allowed me to integrate a groove. And so the shelf is made out of a single extrusion that is mirrored, and then the sides and the shelf themselves are the same piece, and they slot along a groove and can go up and down. It's a very, very smart way of constructing in a way, because it's only one piece that does everything. Yeah, and I'm kind of potentially found someone to edit it now. So that project was quite important for me. It was shown in many places, and I think that project gave me a lot of confidence into what I wanted to do, I think. And then I also recently had this other one that that I can put in this category of ready-made, is like the picture frame that I did fairly recently now, that was borrowing the manufacturing processes of car windshields, whereby it has a printed edge, and behind that edge, the structure is glued to then have a rubber joint. And it's kind of done like cars, car windshields. And I took the project a little bit further. It was quite interesting because with printing on glass, you could suddenly offer many different colors and thicknesses to the designs, with having only one manufacturing process. So it offers a lot of possibility for bespoke picture framing, and it gives a new materiality because it's completely flat, and it's got that print possibility. You can have patterns. So this one shows like shows it with the dots, but it had I did lots of other ones that were just quite plain, just a simple color. That project won the Swiss Design Award in 21, I think. And the same is probably, it has a potential editor now. So hopefully that happens, but it was a project that was very graphic in a way to work on. And the last kind of strand of what I want to talk about is like the tool aesthetic, the reduction and legibility in my work. I feel like I often try and keep things really quite quite simple as possible, and also like reduce the amount of material. So because I want, obviously, for the environment, but and for also an intelligence in how you make products. So this one was a project that that is a concept still for Selahattin, and we were looking at how to make a toothbrush, reusable toothbrush, with as little materials as possible. So we used a tube, stainless steel tube that you would reuse, and just have a plastic kind of cap head. Same for like a razor, sorry. But in that tool aesthetics, there is also, like, for example, this corner lights that I did for a gallery, Okro. That was, someone compared it to like the Swiss Rex peeler. It's a very, the project was very, very short notice. They gave us like something like 2 months to probably come up with something delivered to their gallery. And we had to basically work with what we had available in the studio. And that is quite an interesting thing as well. I really believe in the strength of working with the material you got around you. And just, so this one is just a simple box, aluminium, with inside inserted the electrics, if you want, and then a tube that connects the electrics, and you use basically the wall as a reflector. So it's a very simple object, but what is nice about it is how crude it is in a way. It's not, there's no sophistication to it. Similar in that vein is and the last project is the project I did with Alix and OKRM, which is unreleased, but I can talk about it just briefly, where we really worked with standard extrusion to make a new industry standard for. So the problem was, like, Alix in the backstage, the hairdresser that was working with them, Gary Gial, that works with them, he was complaining that the mirrors were really crap, the standard mirrors they have. So we worked on a new version of it, using kind of almost only like standard material, like aluminum extrusions that are box standard ones, and things to attach accessories. And that just closes it off on this thing of hacking, is that I think this is like really a quite contemporary aesthetics anyway that is going around, but where you can really see things being borrowed and remashed up together, and that bringing something quite contemporary. These are just like some slides of, because I can't show the final product, of how we took some materials and how the different elements, and how these things are then all combined into a new product. That's it. Sorry, I'm finished.
It's fantastic.
So much to take in.
Yeah, so much great work.
Yeah.
So I hope I was making some kind of sense.
Yeah.
I think mostly what I'm trying to get across is like all this like thing of what's really important in the work is like to take things and bring it somewhere else, and like being part of a bigger conversation that is not just you and your work. It's just like really like everything for me is connected in a way, and I really like the idea that the work is is legible, that you can understand where my references are and how I put things together, almost that you understand my process by looking at the work in a way.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that came through.